All right, you hear the music? That means only one thing. The Grown Folk Podcast is on the air. Here's what you missed. Now, a while ago, we recorded a podcast and I was talking about a friend of ours, Silent and myself, that had moved in with the roommate and he's been having nothing but problems. I mean, he's been having nothing but problems. And it's really kind of his fault because when he started talking about this moving in with a roommate, I know I tried to tell him that that might not be the best thing for you. A lot of times people move in with people out of convenience. And a lot of times they sit down and they plan this stuff out. You pay X amount, I'll pay X amount, I'll do this, you do that, blah, 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 blah. And it always starts out good. But in some cases, what winds up happening is that there are things about the person you're roommating with. There might be certain habits and things that they have that they always start out small, but then eventually they escalate. He's stuck in a situation right now where he's stuck with a roommate that he absolutely can't stand. Like, he just can't stand him. And now he's talking about, well, I should have listened to you and this, that, and the other. Well, I wonder how many people out there are stuck with roommates that they absolutely can't stand for whatever reason. And I'm thinking if he's going through this, there's got to be other people out there that are going through the same thing. Just randomly looking on Google, and I came across people complaining about their roommates. And not only complain about the roommates, some people were complaining about their neighbors, because you also have a percentage of people that they might not be roommating with people, but they have neighbors who are absolutely unbearable. And you know the people I'm talking about. If you're sitting in your home or you're sitting in your living room and your neighbors, whatever your neighbors are doing is filtering in through your home, then that's a problem. And you know, there are people, and I don't give a damn what city or what state you live in, what neighborhood, you're always going to find neighbors that they can't contain whatever nonsense or whatever stuff they got going on. They can't contain it in their own homes. It always winds up some kind of way filtering over into your house, where they might have a lot of drama going on. There's always music being played constantly, or they're partying all the time, or something's always going on. Their trash always instead of winding up in front of their house, it always winds up on your lawn. You know, maybe they got a dog that's always loud or something. I mean, there's always, you name it, it goes on, right? It's just unavoidable. And I don't know these people that do this. I don't know, and they're clueless. Like, they're absolutely clueless. You know what I mean? Like, they have no idea. They're so caught up in whatever they're caught up in, so they don't realize that they're the disruption on the block or in the neighborhood, or, you know, if it's a roommate, same thing, you know. They never, and you can never get rid of these people. I don't give a damn what you do, where you go, you can just never get rid of them. Now, listen, we all have our own quirks. Everybody's got their own quirks and their own problems or whatever. And that's fine, but it only becomes a problem when it starts filtering over your space. You know, everybody has their personal space. But when it starts filtering over into your space, then that's when it becomes a problem. And again, these people always seem to be clueless, the fact that they're disturbing the people around them. And I don't know if it's a thing where they're just selfish, or they're they're just so into themselves. I mean, I don't know what their mindset is. So some of these stories that I came across, and one of these things is kind of what our friend is going through. For example, had a roommate during the first semester of my freshman year at military college. Every night he would scream on the phone with his girlfriend, not yelling at her, but screaming through the phone as if she couldn't hear him. And this went on until 3 or 4 in the morning. And that's the thing too with these people. They always seem to wait till you go to sleep before they want to have these ridiculous arguments. Like you got people up, man, screaming and yelling at each other at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you got to get up and go to work. And it's like, damn, can't you people wait till, if you're going to argue, at least wait till an hour of the day where everybody's up. But they always want to start arguing when you're in the bed. I mean, how many times have you been awakened by somebody arguing with their significant others at 3, 4, or 5 in the morning? You know what I mean? It's like, can't y'all go to sleep and argue at a decent hour of the day? You know? So I never did understand that. I don't know what it is. They wait till you go to sleep before they do that. So that's what went on with this guy here. Here's another one. Now, this is always a problem, too. We had a roommate. The guy seemed nice at first, but never paid his rent. He moved in with very little belongings, which seemed suspicious to me. But he explained he just separated from his girlfriend, and he had moved across the country. He had all kinds of stupid excuses for not transferring money. At the same time, he took our food and stuff without asking. He never cleaned, said he didn't know how to use a dishwasher. So here you got a guy, he's basically mooching off of his roommates. You got a lot of that going on too, these moochers that come in. You know, you have these guys come in, they're always eating up your stuff, and you don't mind it the first couple of times, but then after a while, it's like, look, man, buy some food already, you know? So he didn't know how to use a dishwasher, which that shouldn't be all that hard to learn. So after 8 weeks, we set a deadline, pay up or leave. We made an appointment for that evening to hand over the money. He knew that we would not be home during the day, so we assumed rightly that he would get his stuff and leave while we were not there. So the guy came by to try to get his stuff, but he couldn't because they changed the locks and all. And then he said what he would do is get on the phone and send angry texts, and even threaten to call the police, I guess, to get his stuff back. He said 3 days later he still didn't pay, but there were 3 of them. So the other roommate gave the guy back most of his stuff, except for, it says here's some cheap musical equipment that he had to sell so they can get some money from this guy who never paid his rent. Said, turns out this asshole has done the same thing over and over again. I live in a small university town, lots of shared student apartments, lots of opportunities for him to screw over people. So this is a guy, and that's usually how it works too. Usually when you have these guys that move in and they don't want to pay rent and they mooch, they go from place to place. And this is what I was talking about. I don't know if these guys, if they're just clueless as to their behavior, or if they're just, you have people out here that are users, and I guess that's what he is. But then if you turn around and do it to them, then it's a problem. You know what I mean? So it's all, no, you can't, oh no, you're gonna have to come up off of something, brother. So that's the way it works with these people. One more, I wouldn't necessarily say he was a roommate from hell, but I lived with this one guy. There were 4 of us. My girlfriend, her sister, and her sister's boyfriend. The guy was fun and cool, but dear God, he was a slob and absolutely did not clean up after himself, which wouldn't have been so bad except for his messes were fairly epic. Once he wanted to make beef jerky but didn't have any steak. So he flattened ground beef and put it in the dehydrator. 4 weeks later, we were like, dude, when are you going to clean up? And it doesn't say whether the guy answered him or not. Then they gave another time where they went fishing, which I can already tell you that's going to be something messy. If the guy is a slob and they're going fishing, I can already tell you that this story is not going to end well. It says he went fishing with his dad. They brought back their haul to the house. They cleaned the fish in our garage and put the guts in a box on the ground. Yeah. The fillets went into the extra fridge, and he has in parentheses, mine. And of course, the box stayed on the ground. And by the way, he made it a point to let us know in the story that it's July. So that means that it's hot. And if anybody knows that if it's hot and you got like fish crap on the ground, it's not going to be a pleasant thing to deal with. So it says it's July. For 3 weeks, the stuff stayed on the ground. And it said the fillets never got eaten. And you know, the thing about it is when people do stuff like this, I mean, like if you got like fish guts on the ground in July, like, can't you see how disgusting that is? You know what I mean? So it doesn't say whatever happened to the guy, whether they wound up staying or leaving. And man, that's the worst, man. If you deal with a roommate that's sloppy, I mean, they might pay the rent on time, but if they're sloppy, you know, it's kind of like the odd couple. But then I guess if a person is sloppy and you're dealing with a roommate that's neat, maybe their neatness gets on your nerves. I mean, I don't know. My philosophy is this: whatever you are or aren't is your business. Again, just don't let it affect someone else's personal space. Now, if you guys are staying in an apartment together, roommating, and you have one guy's a slob and one guy that's neat, well, keep your slobness in your part of the apartment. So if your room if you go in your room, you go in somebody's room and they got crap everywhere, dirty laundry and food particles and empty beer cans and all this kind of crap, cigarette butts in an ashtray that have been sitting there for months and months, you know, keep all that slobness in your room, and that's your business. Then there's no problem. But if you're sloppy, and it's just going to follow you wherever you're at, you know. So I wonder how many people out there that are listening are dealing with this problem of the roommate from hell, or as I said before, maybe neighbors from hell. You know, now our friend, he's just in a situation right now where he's just stuck. I mean, he's just stuck. I mean, there's nothing you can do with it. And that's the worst too, man, when you have to come to the place you live and lay your head and you absolutely hate it. Just one of the challenges of adulthood, I guess. So, moving on. The story goes, it's Tallahassee, Florida. A police report says a prominent Florida pastor was forced to run out of a house naked after a woman's husband came home to find him having sex with his wife. The Tallahassee Democrat reports, police documents show a woman's husband found her in bed with Pastor O. Jermaine Simmons in the middle of the afternoon on January 17th. The woman told police her husband yelled that he was going to kill Simmons, who fled the apartment naked and hid behind a nearby fence. Oops. Wow. The husband took the pastor's clothes, wallet, and car keys and later agreed to return the items following negotiations with the police. And it says a video posted online shows Simmons asking for forgiveness from his congregation at Tallahassee Jacob Chapel, saying, "You cannot defend sin." Just scrolling down through some of these comments. Somebody says, "Can I get an amen?" Why wasn't the husband upset with his wife? It takes two to tango. Yeah, okay. In his dealings with the parishioners, he's taking a missionary position. Wow, I mean, really? Okay, come on. Well, okay, so here's a new word everybody's using now. Let's unpack this, okay? Let's unpack this story. So you're going to church with your woman or your wife or whatever, and you're sitting in church on Sunday, listening to the pastor giving the word, and he's telling you, thou shalt not lust after someone else's wife, or what did it say? Covet, thou shalt not covet after someone else's. I mean, I don't know what it is, whatever it is. He's up there telling you all this stuff about not living in sin and this, that, and other. And the whole time he's telling you that, he's got his eye on your wife, you know. Well, Sister Bernice sure look fine. Oh, now with that tight dress on she got sitting in the front pew or whatever. So the whole time he's telling you this stuff, he's up there looking at your wife, plotting his move, you know. And at some point he makes it a point to go over to her house to meet up. So I mean, like, how does that work? Now, what I want to know is, if you're a parishioner in that church and you find out that your pastor is engaging in this kind of behavior, I mean, do you continue to go to the church, or what do you do? They said he was up there asking for forgiveness. I mean, do you forgive them, or do you say, you know what? Nah, that's a little too much for me, Pastor. Pastor, what's his name again? Pastor Simmons. Oh no, that's a little too much for me, Pastor Simmons. I'm gonna have to find me someplace else. I mean, how do you deal with that? And you know, something else I'm curious about too. If this podcast was set up to take phone calls, I would ask this question. Has anybody ever been in this situation where you're a parishioner of a church and the pastor steps out with your wife or your significant other? I imagine we'll have somebody that will say, yeah, it's happened to them. I mean, obviously it goes on. I mean, because it's here in the story. You know what I mean? So, but I'm curious about that. But this is one of the reasons why I think people are kind of turned away from the church, because of stuff like this. Which, by the way, I was watching one of the public access stations here in the city, and there was a church program that was on. They were all kind of sitting around a table. It was maybe about 4 or 5 people. They were all sitting around a table and they were talking. They weren't putting on a service. They were just sitting around talking about different things, kind of like what we do on this podcast, just kind of rambling, you know. And it was the pastor of the church, and it was the pastor, you know, his assistant, secretary, whatever you call it. And they had a couple of other guests, and they're all kind of just sitting around. Like, it was like a church talk show, basically. That's what it was. He had guests. It was a pastor and a co-host and some guests. So that's what was going on in this program. And the whole while this is going on, they had some kind of big gala that was coming up that they were having at the Hyatt Regency. So they started advertising this event that they were having coming up, some kind of big shindig at the Hyatt what they call it, the gala. We're having this big gala at the Hyatt Regency. It's downtown Chicago, and we want all our people to come out and partake in our festivities downtown at the Hyatt. And tickets are X amount, and however much the tickets were, she was talking about the tickets. And we have tickets, and you can purchase your tickets at such and such and such and such. And we're also going to have VIP. That's very important, people. And then the woman says, and then one of the guests says, oh, well, who's going to be a VIP? And she says, oh, well, VIP is, and this is the pastor's secretary or whatever. Well, again, I don't know what the correct term is or the correct title, you know. But she's going on this thing. She's saying, well, VIP is for people like the aldermen and the pastor's very close friends and politicians and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking to myself, what is this classism in the church crap? I mean, if I'm a member of your church and we're all going to a gala, I mean, every picture I've seen of Jesus sitting at the Last Supper, that picture where you see him sitting at the Last Supper with the 12 disciples, there's no VIP section there. I mean, everybody's sitting at the same table. We're all one church. We all sit at one table. Joe Blow so-and-so can sit next to Alderman so-and-so, and Pastor so-and-so can sit next to Joe Blow's sister Bernice or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, this whole thing about this classism, right? Well, we have VIP and you have to have a special amount. I mean, that's ridiculous to me. And I'm gonna tell you something, if I was a parishioner of that church, that would really turn me off. There was an annual event, so they do it every year, so apparently people don't mind, and they always talk, and every year it's sold out, and we have a big thing going on downtown. And people put on their Sunday's best, and they come down to the gala, and so I'm thinking to myself, it must be a success. People don't mind it because everybody comes down there. And I get that you put on events for your church, and you do fundraisers and things of that nature to help the church out. But this business about VIP and all this kind of stuff, I'm thinking, that might be a bit much for me. You know, but these are the kind of things, I guess, that go on in church now. And as I've said on this podcast, I haven't been to church in years. So I don't know what's going on in churches now. So that was what happened with this pastor in Tallahassee. Half-naked driver crashes car into store to get a beer. So here you have a guy. Now, this is in Rocky River, Ohio. You ever heard of Rocky River, Ohio, Silent? Yeah, Rocky River, Ohio. Police in suburban Cleveland say half-naked man intentionally crashed his car into a closed convenience store to get a beer, injuring himself and a store employee. So that's pretty good. So can you imagine working like at the 7-Eleven or something, or the J.J. Peppers, or one of these, or the Circle K or whatever, and you're standing behind the counter and here comes this car crashing through the window. It's like, what the hell is going on? But in this particular case here, this guy wanted a beer. We gotta go to this, get a beer. That's what he did. He crashed his car into the window. He crashed his car. So the Rocky River police say the 45-year-old driver was wearing nothing from the waist down when he crashed through the store window. So not only did the guy, okay, so here you got a guy that he crashes through the store window and he's half naked. And it just goes downhill from there. Police say the man barricaded himself in a beer cooler and told police to shoot him, but they subdued him with a stun device. And we probably know the guy wasn't black because they would have shot him. Right, you know. But anyway, the driver was taken to a hospital, as was a store employee who suffered leg and chest injuries that weren't considered critical. But listen to the charge. They gave the driver was charged with impaired driving. Seems to me he should have been charged with more than that. I mean, this story says he intentionally crashed into the convenience store with his car with the intention to basically steal a beer. And all he got was impaired driving. So this guy would be back out in the street to pull this again. This guy's 45 years old, man. But that's how that went down out there in Rocky River. Anybody out there listening to Rocky River, Ohio? It's a suburb of Cleveland, according to this story. You know, a lot of times too, when we read these stories, they're always in places you never heard of. They're always in these little small towns and counties that a lot of us have never heard of. Then you scroll down to some of these comments. Like this one here. Everybody knows when you have to make a beer run and you're not wearing pants, you use the drive-thru. Yeah, okay. Deli meats, beer, bear junk, and a walk-in fridge. Now there's a party. Oh, jeez. How about this one here? That's why you always have an extra fridge full of beer. And one guy goes, wow, without his pants and his wallet, how did he expect to pay for that beer? But I think that was the point. He was trying to steal it. Which again, I don't know why they didn't charge him with attempted theft. Because you're right, how was he going to pay for it? Well, so there you have it. I remember years ago, I want to say it might have been about the early 90s. And it was always around this time of the year, probably around about late September, start of October. The kids in the neighborhood would come home from school and they would say there was a clown chasing. Now, around about this time, if you were old enough to remember, In Living Color was on television. And anybody that's seen the show, they know Damon Wayans played this character called Homie the Clown. Well, what wound up happening was these kids would go through the neighborhood saying Homie the Clown was chasing from school. And they always said he was in a white van. They used to say he was in a white van and he would ride around and he would jump out the van and start chasing kids. And that was the first I ever heard of such a thing. When I was a kid in school, at least where I was at, I never heard of any such thing as clowns chasing kids home from school. At least not that I can remember. I never heard of that again until the 90s. Then that went on for a little while, then it's kind of died out, this business about Homie the Clown. And every year, these kids would say that they were being chased by Homie the Clown. Then that went on until In Living Color went on TV, and that was kind of the end of that. And I don't know if this is a name that the kids just gave this clown, right? Or like, I don't know if that's just something that they said because they saw it on television and they said it was Homie the Clown. And then I don't even know if it's such a thing even existed. I never saw him. Nobody I knew saw it. Saw a guy in a van dressed as a clown. So only thing that we had to go on was the word of these kids who may or may not have seen this guy riding around in a white van dressed as a clown. But so anyway, that died out, and then some years later, around the same time, late September, start of October, you would hear these kids again, like a different generation of kids now, talking about they were being chased by a clown. Now, This time it wasn't called Homie the Clown. They were just it was a clown. And he was riding around in a van. And he would jump out of the van and start chasing people. And same thing again, I never saw anything. I can only go by what I heard from these kids. So I'm saying that to say that I don't know if such a thing existed or not. The kids were saying they saw this thing. I never heard of anybody getting arrested for it. And I don't even know of anybody who might have seen. It's kind of like that whole Bigfoot thing where you keep having these people say they saw a Bigfoot. You hear people say it, but it's never been seen anywhere. So that was kind of what it was like when these kids were running around talking about they seeing these clowns. Now again, maybe they did see it. I don't know. I'm just saying I never witnessed it, and I don't know anybody who's witnessed it. And again, it was always around the same time of the year. Like I never heard it like in mid-July or early March. It was always around September. It was always definitely around October. And the closer you got to Halloween, the more you would hear these kids say they've seen this clown. And then it died out again. And now here we are again. If you've been paying attention to the news, here we are again in 2016, and I'm hearing it again. Now, I'm under the impression that this has probably been going on. Kids have been saying they've been getting chased by clowns every year. But where I was at here in Chicago, I would only hear it every few years. But maybe it's been going on every year. I don't know. I'm saying that to say that here we are now sitting in 2016, and it's back again. Now, the difference between then and now is that you have social media. And of course, like anything else, what happens is these things start somewhere, and before you know it, you have a bunch of idiots, grown-ass men, and this is what I was talking about at the top of the podcast about grown men acting like grown men. This is why I talked about that, because now what you have grown men who are apparently running around dressed as clowns, and it's probably something that might have started as a social media thing, and again, like most of these things, people were probably way too much time on their hands, idiots, assholes, whatever you want to call them. Grown-ass men, they go out and they dress up like clowns and they run around and chase kids. Now you actually have video footage. Now, whether or not it's real or not, I don't know. But there are videos here and there posted on Facebook or YouTube of people running around dressed as clowns. Now, for what purpose these people do this, again, I don't know. I don't get the logic behind it. And if you go to the internet and look, I mean, there's tons of these things. Reports of clown sightings have been popping up in the Erie region and around the nation in recent months. The reports began in late August in Greenville County, South Carolina, where creepy clowns were reported in attempting to get children to follow them into wooded areas. Here you have something else here. Clown sightings causes Overland Park Middle School to adjust classes for the day. Killer clowns, nationwide sightings. And this thing has gotten to the point where it's so bad where Target is saying now that Target is removing clown masks after a series of creepy clown sightings. Clown sightings, and this is going on this is going on, by the way, all across the country. Clown sightings in Arizona, clown sightings in Virginia, Illinois. I mean, it's just on and on and on and on. And we have a little audio we're going to play as well. Now, this is in Tennessee, so we're going to play this real quick. All right, so what's going on out here with these clowns? Why are grown men walking the streets of America dressed as clowns? This goes back to what I was talking about earlier in the podcast. When will some of these people grow up and act their age? There is no reason for any grown man in the United States, in this country or any other country, to be putting on a clown outfit, running around antagonizing kids. The only way that you should be putting on a clown outfit is if it's part of your occupation. This makes no sense to me at all, and I don't even understand the point behind this. Last year on this podcast, I read an article about anger and why are people so angry. And if you listen to this podcast any length of time, you know that that's something that I've talked about on occasion. This idea that we live in kind of an angry society. And I don't know what fuels it, but there is a lot of anger out here. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out why. And even when we got into that article, it really didn't shed a whole lot of light. And by the way, that article was out of the United Kingdom. So their issues over there would be different than issues that we're dealing with here in the United States. but it was still the only thing that I was able to find on the subject at the time that I was ready to record that podcast. Well, since then, this year, I've been randomly coming across some unbelievable articles. I can't figure out what the hell is going on with people out here now. I came across a few articles. How about this one here? A man fired into the car of another motorist in the Loop after the pair raced along the near-empty downtown streets early Saturday. The gunman, who was driving a black SUV with a female passenger, sped away after firing a single shot in the passenger side door of Omar Ahmed's car just before 5 a.m. Ahmed was not injured, but he crashed into the front of a CTA bus before his brown Infiniti sedan came to rest along the side of the curb on LaSalle and Randolph streets. And then they have this guy Ahmed saying, "That bullet could have likely taken my life," says Ahmed, 26. "Dang, I could have died, man. That's crazy as hell." Before the shooting, Ahmed had just finished his overnight stint Uber driving and was heading to meet a friend when he began racing with the car next to him. They competed for about a minute, Ahmed said, but the driver of the SUV began to appear agitated. So what you had going on here with these two is they were having a pissing contest. Well, I'll show you. You're not going to beat me. I'm faster than you. So basically they were behind the wheels of their cars acting like idiots. But this guy in the SUV riding with his woman took the idiocy to another level and had to pull out a gun and shoot at him. Ahmed pulled into the turning lane of the intersection of South LaSalle and West Washington streets when the other man rolled down his window, said, "What's up?" and pulled out a gun. "That's when I heard the click of the gun and I hit the gas," Ahmed said. You got two guys driving their cars and the one guy in the SUV can't handle it and he pulls out a gun and he shoots at the other car. And what I want to know is who, this woman that's in the car with the guy that did the shooting, I wonder what her thought process was. But guess what? It doesn't stop there. Check this out. Road rage on Kennedy Expressway leads to gunfire. A person was shot at Wednesday night while driving on the Kennedy Expressway in an apparent case of road rage. At 11:03 p.m., the person was driving when someone in a blue Nissan SUV sped up from another SUV. What's with these people in these SUVs? Someone in a blue Nissan SUV sped up from behind the victim. The victim pulled over to let the Nissan pass, but the driver in the Nissan then pulled over to let the victim pass. The Nissan followed the victim's car, and while the victim was driving on I-90 South from Avondale Avenue, someone in the Nissan fired shots. The victim's car was hit once with a bullet going through the driver's side door and shattering the window. And it doesn't really give much details as to what led this person in his blue Nissan SUV to start shooting. It didn't say, and it even said the victim, and this is the victim telling the story, so no telling what happened prior to. Maybe this guy cut off the blue Nissan, maybe he flipped him off, who knows, but the way the story reads is that the guy in the Nissan sped up behind him and just started shooting at him. So I don't know what happened that led up to it, but the point is, whatever it is, does it warrant being shot at? What, you get mad at somebody while you're driving, you want to shoot at them? What if you got a pregnant woman sitting in the car, or a kid, or a baby? But nope, none of that matters to these people. Unbelievable. And it doesn't stop there. Check this out. Arrests made in slaying that started as a fight at the Garfield Red Line stop. Two men were arguing at the Garfield Red Line platform around 2:30 a.m. Nothing good happens after 12 o'clock midnight in this city, man. Two men were arguing on the Garfield Red Line platform around 2:30 a.m. Monday. When CTA workers told them to leave, their fight continued outside the station. One of the men pulled a gun and chased the other man, firing shots that hit the man in his chest. The guy that got shot's name was Tolliver. Tolliver was pronounced dead at 3:53 a.m. And it says Tolliver's relationship to the shooter and why they were fighting is still being investigated. So They don't even know why this thing happened. They just know that the guys were arguing and it wound up with somebody getting shot and killed in the end. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is when I read this story, what they could have been arguing about that was worth a man's life. And I don't know if it's a thing that these guys get guns and they just want to use them, or if these people are really that angry. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but maybe they're on some kind of substances. I mean, is it something in the air or in the water? I mean, I don't know. And of course, it doesn't stop there. Lakeview party crasher groped woman, shot man. So let's see what we got here. A man who crashed a college party in Lakeview pushed his way in, groped a woman, punched and slapped other guests, and then returned with a gun after he was kicked out. So this guy was really pissed off. This guy is James Warren is the guy's name. It says it all began sometime after 11 p.m. Saturday, when Warren and a friend tried to crash a party in the 2900 block of North Sheffield Avenue. The party was hosted by a local university student and his roommate. The host told Warren he wasn't welcome, but of course that wasn't good enough for him. Warren soon pushed his way into the Lakeview apartment as a throng of guests arrived. Several partygoers asked Warren to leave after he became aggressive and touched several women inappropriately. Warren and his guests soon agreed to leave, but not before Warren slapped and punched two guests on his way out the door. So he's leaving out and he's assaulting people. And then again, that wasn't good enough for him. Warren returned a short while later and began asking guests if they wanted to fight while boasting that he had a gun. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is, at what point do you call the police? This guy Warren and pushed his way into the party. He's causing all kinds of problems. He's grabbing women. And at no point anybody said, well, let's call the police. Now, granted, the guy did leave the first time, but he didn't assault damn near everybody in the party and then shows back up. So, like, at what point do you call the police? So it says the guy showed up for a second time, causing all kinds of problems, asking people to fight, this, that, and other, and he also talked about how he had a gun, which I don't understand. Either you want to fight people or you want to get your gun. Now, which one is it? So it says after that happened, Warren left once more and soon entered the party for a third time through a back entrance at about 1:15 a.m. So this nonsense that went on from 11 to damn near 1:30 in the morning. And again, nobody called the police. That's when Warren opened fire, striking a man 4 times in his thigh, ankle, and knee. And then after that, well, police showed up. They arrested the guy. And I don't know if the person that he shot, I mean, I don't know if this was a person that I don't know if this is the person he got into an altercation with, or he was just shooting somebody at random. I mean, I don't know. But they did arrest the guy. And it says this guy Warren works part-time, or he worked there anyway. I don't know. I doubt that he still has his job, but he worked at a local hotel part-time. And I don't know how he knew about this party or what his association was with these people, where he would even know that they were having a party, to show up on their doorstep like, hey, let me in.